Welcome to the Carolina Weather Group. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. Frank Strait will be coming up in a little bit with an update on our wintry weather forecast for Friday. Who could see rain? Who can see snow? That's coming up in the second half hour of our program. But first, I want to bring you a portion of a conversation I had at my day job on WCNC Plus. We had a chance to catch up with IBHS. The cold weather season is upon us, and that means trying to keep the temperature up in your home while keeping your power bill down. And the Carolinas is home to the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. And with their lab right here in South Carolina, scientists stress test full-size homes up against the power of Mother Nature. Joining us now is meteorologist Rachel Gauthier, who's going to help us stay warm without paying too much this winter. Rachel, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. So the cold weather, it is here. It has come on quite suddenly, and I know my heat is on at home. So what are some of the things people can do to protect their homes and their assets this time of year from the seasonal hazards?
Yeah, well, lots of different things, lots of different components of the home. I would say start with the roof. If you're familiar with our research at IBHS, we do a ton of research on the roof, different roofing materials, how to strengthen your roof against the various elements. So we say the roof is the home's first line of defense. So just making sure your roof is in shape for the winter season. Obviously, we're no stranger to things like severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, a hurricane every now and then. And winter weather can do damage too. It's not just about those scarier storms. Winter weather brings wind and rain and extreme temperatures, precipitation. So I would say three different things concerning your roof is one, make sure it's in good repair. Check for like missing and broken shingles. Those can let water into your house, and nobody wants that. That usually leads to a cascade of damage. So just repairing any shingles that could be damaged. The second thing is any trees that might overhang your house, in the event that we have ice or even strong winds, any branches hanging over your roof could break off, land on your roof, do damage. So just trimming those back, make sure there's nothing, hanging over your roof. And then the last thing is just something simple, which is cleaning out gutters and downspouts, right? You want those to be clear of that leaf and pine straw, tree debris from the fall season, and make sure that any water that hits your roof can drain away from your roof and out those gutters and downspouts. So you don't want those to cause any backups into your roof. So three really simple things concerning a roof that you should definitely think about doing before we get into the heart of the winter season.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about those downspouts and runoff, because a couple days this week in our forecast we'll have rain, but then we'll have those freezing temperatures that kind of mix in. I know I've already had to start to defrost my car, and it got me thinking as I was sitting there waiting for the ice to defrost off my windshield. I wonder where all that water runoff went yesterday, and did it seep into cracks in my home? And what happens, Rachel, if we get moisture in and then the temperatures drop?
Yeah, if you get moisture in and the temperatures drop, in extreme cases that can lead to things like ice dams on your roof, where you have that water kind of trapped underneath some of those layers, kind of freezing and refreezing, and eventually it's going to melt, so that water can make its way through your roof, through those, your roof deck has gaps and cracks in the roof decking, and if the water makes its way under that underlayment and through those gaps and cracks, you can end up with water in your attic. You could also end up with water in your house, gaps and cracks around windows and doors, things that might need to be recaulked to keep that water out of your home and that cold air out of your home as well, keeping it better insulated. So certainly kind of looking into those aspects and making sure that you take care of that before the winter precip and the cold temperatures set in.
Besides trying to keep the water out and the cold out, what are things I can do to keep my heat inside my home?
Yeah, well, sealing up any openings to the outside is going to go a long way, not just to keeping the water out, but to keeping the warm air in, right? That's going to make sure that your HVAC system is running efficiently. Things like changing out the filter in your HVAC system, any kind of regular maintenance that you should do to keep it running efficiently, that's going to help with that power bill as well. And then, the other aspect, of course, is pipes and making sure those are properly insulated. That's going to go a long way in making sure that your home stays in good condition during the winter months, making sure pipes are insulated. Here in the Carolinas, homes aren't necessarily built to withstand these prolonged freezing temperatures. So if we have something like that, you want to make sure pipes on exterior walls are insulated. Outside, hose bibs, those water spigots, you can get those really inexpensive foam covers, making sure those are covered up during the winter months. And then, things like leaving the cabinets open to let that warm air circulate around your pipes, and leaving, the pipes drip as well. That's another good way to keep those pipes protected, and making sure your thermostat is set on a good temperature. 55 is really the minimum temperature you would want your heater set at in the event that you're out of town or something, to really keep your house just warm enough so that you don't have any issues with pipes or anything like that.
I was afraid for a moment you were going to suggest I set it to 55 while I'm inside, and I'm like, that sounds so cold.
No, definitely not. Some people, we all want to save on our heating bill when we're out of town for the holidays, right? But don't completely turn it off. Leave it on 55 minimum to make sure that the pipes stay warm and you don't have any issues while you're out of town.
Is there anything someone could do? I want to make sure this is applicable to them too. If they're watching and maybe they rent their property, so they're not a homeowner, so the things they can control might be a little bit more limited. Are there things that could be applied to a rental space as well?
Yeah, that's a really great question, especially because usually the homeowner is maybe often in charge of some of that maintenance. So keeping up with regular maintenance, whether you want to step in and do that or you want to ask your landlord to do it, that's something you can do. Another thing that's really fairly inexpensive when it comes to, like freezing temperatures and water damage, they have water sensors you can get on Amazon. You may not be the property owner, but for 20 or 30 bucks, you can put those sensors underneath the pipes in your home. And if you're out of town or you're at work or whatever, it'll send you an alert to your smartphone and it'll let you know that you have a water leak. So that's something you can do really to protect your own belongings that may be inside that rental home. So it's a really simple thing. And then the other thing, that this is not specifically winter weather related, we recommend this for winter and all perils, is having a home inventory, right? If you're a renter, you're going to have renter's insurance. If you're a homeowner, you're going to have homeowner's insurance. But either way, if you sustain damage, whether it's water intrusion because of a leaky roof or a busted pipe, or whether it's severe thunderstorm damage or whatever, you need to inventory the items in your home. So if you do have to file a claim with your insurance, you've got to be able to prove, what was in your home and the condition that it was in. So doing things like documenting your belongings, your big ticket items, appliances, exercise equipment, whatever it is, do that. There's apps. I have an app that I use that it lets me upload photos and videos and label each room of the home. You can also just take a walkthrough video on your phone and then just save that. That's going to, save you a lot of trouble in the long run in the event that you do have to file some type of insurance claim.
Rachel, you mentioned earlier that hail could also be a problem with my roof, and I feel like a lot of times with winter we think about snow, we think about ice, but we're not thinking about ice balls or hail. But I guess we can get severe weather any time of year here in the Carolinas, it feels like. So what are things I can do to protect myself against that type of frozen hazard?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Again, going back to the general home maintenance, that's going to be applicable for hail as well. We also have the program called Fortified. You've probably heard us talk about that as well. We're a big proponent of that Fortified program to protect against hail damage. There are special shingles, actually, that we rate here at IBHS. We shoot real hailstones at them in our hail lab, and we find out how they stand up to hailstones. And there are shingles that do much better than others and much worse than others when it comes to standing up against hail. So if hail is a big concern, this is obviously not one of the simple steps, but more of a bigger investment. But in the event that you're re-roofing, choosing one of the shingles that's on our list that's rated good or excellent is something we really recommend to protecting against hail. And then, if you're not ready to re-roof, just simple things like a roof inspection. Have a roofer come out and make sure you don't have missing or broken shingles as well. So because in the event that you get hail or wind, that could further damage your roof. And it all goes back to allowing that water to get into your house. And I mentioned fortified earlier. That's something that takes care of that issue where you put some tape over those seams and seal it up, and that really prevents most of the water from getting into your home. But a couple of different options there, whether you're ready for a bigger investment or some of those just simpler steps like simply inspecting your roof.
You mentioned roofs, Rachel, and I was on my roof last weekend putting up Christmas lights, and I was looking at my shingles, and I was like, okay, they look pretty good. I don't see any sort of hail damage. So those are the types of things I remember talking about and seeing at the lab and then trying to bring back around over to the real world. But I hadn't thought much about my gutters, and you talked about ice dams. Can you talk us through what an ice dam is and what I should be doing to prepare my home to prevent them?
Yeah, well, so an ice dam, and I'm probably not going to get this exactly right because I was born and raised in the South, but an ice dam is basically when you get winter precipitation, and at some point, it melts because of fluctuating temperatures and then refreezes. And it's really kind of where the moisture gets trapped between your underlayment, which is underneath your roof cover, and like your roof deck. And you often get it, sort of like in the different kind of crevices where your roof meets and you have the different facing slopes, and that's oftentimes where you see that water kind of build up, and so it freezes and it sort of dams up underneath your roof, and then eventually those temperatures are going to go above freezing, and when that happens you start to see that water melting, and because of the fact that the moisture is trapped, it can make its way through your roof deck and into your home. And I was working in Louisiana a few years back, and we had the big 2021 winter storm, and I had actually never heard of an ice dam until that point because, again, worked in a lot of locations in the South, but we had dozens and dozens and dozens of homeowners who found out what an ice dam is with that winter storm. That was the same one that affected Texas. So having that refreezing, that back and forth, and letting that moisture kind of make its way into your roof is what an ice dam basically is, and it can cause a lot of damage to your roof.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm from New York, coastal New York, so like not upstate New York, but the term ice dam was new to me too. So that's why I'm glad we talked about it, because my thought process was exactly what you described there, is that if Louisiana and Texas can get this situation now as the weather and climate is changing, it seems like we all could be prepared for it, especially if, who knows, maybe we move to the mountains and here in the Carolinas introduce ourselves to a whole new climate. So all these things we have to, I guess, kind of think about and consider here.
Yeah, right. We had record-breaking blizzards on the blizzard on the Gulf Coast last year with feet of snow. Didn't think I'd see that in my lifetime, but I think we had 5 or 6 inches of snow in my hometown of Mobile, which 5 or 6 feet of snow, in Mobile, which was just insane. So.
I find myself these days spending more and more time in my garage. I'm trying to make it my own little hangout space, but it's not insulated, not in the walls, not in the roof. Is there value to adding insulation to a garage or maybe to another space in a home that doesn't currently have insulation in it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Particularly if you're spending a lot of time in that room, certainly adding insulation, obviously that's going to help your home be more energy efficient, and then just really maybe more important than anything, more comfortable if you're spending time in it. So yeah, I certainly don't think that it hurts to add a little extra insulation, or update your insulation. Insulation has actually come a long way over the last couple of decades. There's lots of new different options. So yeah, that's certainly something that you could think about doing as well.
Your facility is right there in Chester County between Columbia and Charlotte. It's great to have IBHS here in the Carolinas, and your lab just does remarkable work, as I think our viewers have hopefully gotten to see. You and I and our Carolina Weather Group team had a chance to kind of meet in person about a year ago for our 500th episode. But for anybody who missed that, or maybe is hearing about you guys for the first time today, Rachel, can you just tell us in general, what is IBHS and what are some of the facilities you guys have right here in our own Carolina backyard?
Yeah, IBHS is actually a really unique facility. It's one of the most unique in the world, actually. We have we're a nonprofit scientific research organization. So we believe that we have the technology and the engineering to prevent most damage that's caused by severe weather. So we have a massive research facility campus, like you mentioned, in Richburg, South Carolina, and we're studying wind-driven rain, hail, and wildfire as well. And we're really looking at ways to strengthen homes, to strengthen commercial buildings, for business owners to minimize that damage, minimize that disruption, keep people in their homes and their businesses, without having to move out and be displaced after a disaster. So we have one of the biggest wind tunnels in North America and the world, where we can simulate up to Category 3 hurricane. As you mentioned, you got to visit our hail lab. We are manufacturing realistic hailstones that mimic what you see in nature, and we're shooting them at different roofing materials to find out how they perform. We have a roof aging farm. We're talking a lot about the cold temperatures today. Well, we have little miniature huts with different types of roofing materials on kind of mini roofs on what we call our aging farm. And we're leaving these different roofing materials out for 5, 10, up to 20 years to find out how does your roof perform in extreme temperatures after your roof is 10 years old, 15 years old. Same with the reverse with extreme heat as well, and then precipitation. So we're doing a lot of research to find out how these different materials stand up. And then we're one of the only facilities in the entire world that can simulate wind-driven fire. So that's what you see in the events like we saw in Los Angeles at the beginning of this year with those conflagration events where you see that rapidly spreading fire driven by the wind. We simulate that here on our campus, and we actually set buildings on fire in the name of science to find out how those building materials perform. So lots of unique, interesting research happening here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, it is so cool to see the work that you guys do. That fire experiment we saw here on the Carolina Weather Group a year ago was remarkable, one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and brought a lot of really good science out of it. It seems like all the cards are on the table. You guys do a lot of work that influences building codes. So can you just talk to us a little bit about how your science impacts building codes, and if there's anything that comes to mind either with regards to winter or hurricanes and how those things kind of all play together?
Yeah, so you may or may not know that building codes are not uniform across the country. Some countries, such as Australia, for example, have a national building code. But the United States is huge, and it's actually left up to the individual states. So some states, such as Florida, do have a strong enforced building code across the state. And then many other states have a building code, but they allow amendments at the local level, or they don't really enforce the building code. And then other states have no building code at all. There's several states across the country that simply have no building code. So what we see with the construction of homes and buildings really varies greatly across the United States. So we're a big proponent of building codes. We have, proof and post-damage investigations that we've done in events like Ian in Florida that prove that building codes do work to minimize damage. But so we're involved in a lot of kind of public policy work. We want building codes to be put into place, but kind of our solution in the meantime for those areas that don't have building codes, or even some options that go actually above and beyond building codes. I've mentioned our Fortified program earlier. Fortified is really even a step above some of those best building codes. We just saw an event or a report come out this year regarding Hurricane Sally, which happened in 2020, coastal Alabama. That study actually compared fortified homes to traditional construction homes to the homes that were built to the strong local code on the Alabama coast. And the fortified homes still performed about 50% better. And one of the reasons why is because part of that fortified process is the fortified evaluator process. So you have your fortified contractor following the standard that is based on our science, and then you have the evaluator that comes along and just verifies that the contractor did indeed build correctly to that standard. A key part of that is making sure things are built right and that they're built to that standard. So again, that in that situation, really fortified is above and beyond the building code. And even with strong local building codes, sometimes things are not done correctly. So that's why we're a big proponent of, folks having fortified homes, even if they do have a strong building code. But yeah, we're big proponents of building codes. A great example of a big win this year is that sealed roof deck. So I talked about the seams being covered up with tape and fortified. That's actually going to be expanded to part of the hurricane coast in the 2027 International Building Code. So for those states that do choose to adopt it, new homes that are built in that area along the coast that experience up to about 120 mile per hour winds or more, that's sort of the kind of wind contour and the wind maps that it follows. Sealed roof deck will just be part of the local code for those states that eventually do choose to adopt it. So that was a big win. That's the same science as in our fortified standard, and now it is going to be in some of those building codes in the future.
That's great stuff, Rachel. I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you wanted to share with our audience today, or where can they go to learn more about what we've discussed?
Yeah, we have tons of resources. Just go resources on IBHS.org. We talked a lot about the roof today. We have a really great in-depth education kind of module on our website called Roof 101. And if you're curious to know how your roof works, all the different components, what they do, and how they stand up to wind and hail, we have a lot of great information. And that's just ibhs.org/roof101. So definitely encourage people to check that out if they want to learn more about roofs.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rachel. Frank Strait will be coming up in a little bit with an update on our wintry weather forecast for Friday. Who could see rain? Who can see snow? Right after this, stay with us.
And let you guys see what it is that I'm experiencing.
Trying to get a direct measurement with a handheld Kestrel anemometer here. We'll see what we can pick up, but and there goes change.
When a tornado-warned cell came through the neighborhood and it brought down several large pines, just like the one you're seeing right here behind me. To give you a sense of what the aftermath of storm damage smells like, it smells very heavily of pine and also sounds like chainsaws. We have another tree down here. This one just barely missing this brick home.
Down here. I mean, this is incredible. Let me turn the camera around. Get us back into kind of a dry view.
And I get up here, and all of a sudden, the storm surge started. And all of a sudden, I ended up with about 4 feet of water.
I'm Scotty Powell here reporting just outside of Sparta, North Carolina, where you've seen a lot of the earthquake damage. Again, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake rocked Sparta, North Carolina earlier this morning, just after 8 a.m.
If you go look at the footing of that, you'll see where it was a twist. Very severe wind that caused these structures.
From Gaston County to back here in Mecklenburg County, those were just two of the tornado warnings that were issued here for the greater Charlotte area.
I'm not one for hyperbole, but it's countless at this point. There's trees on houses, there's a lot of roads that are blocked. We're just trying to get cleaned up so people can get through.
Have you ever seen the Dan River like this before?
No, not that I can recall. I mean, I've seen it fairly flooded before, but I've never seen it to where we're now kind of asking ourselves, okay, a couple more feet and it might get over those bridges.
Hey, y'all, it's Carolina Weather Group meteorologist Frank Strait here to talk for a few minutes about what we can expect through the rest of the work week and beyond, with the potential for at least one and maybe even a second winter weather event, mostly affecting North Carolina. No need for bread and milk runs in South Carolina, at least not yet. Looking at the current weather satellites using visible imagery, since we're talking recording this at early afternoon here on Wednesday, shows a lot of clouds and even snow cover over parts of our fruited plain. A lot of clouds sitting over the southeast, burning off as the day wears on, but very slow to do so over parts of South Carolina, which remained gray and chilly, even in Columbia. We're in the 40s here as of early afternoon. Looking farther to the west, though, you can see some clouds associated with a storm system moving through the Four Corners region, and that's going to be the first of the next two storms that we have to deal with. Also, there's a cold front that's moving through the upper Midwest. There's some clouds associated with that that are drifting southward, and to the north of there, snow cover over parts of northern Minnesota and northern North Dakota and into Canada. It's getting to be that time of year, y'all, where you see that snow cover a lot. You can see it over parts of New England and upstate New York as well. Now, as we go through the next couple of days, we'll see this storm over the Four Corners taking the low road across the southern tier of states and into and through the southeast, and that again is our first of two storms we'll be dealing with over the next week. Now, to show you how that's going to behave in terms of some models here, let's move over to first the high-res rapid refresh, which shows that storm coming our way as we go through the day on Thursday. Bringing some rain and snow to western North Carolina, and some freezing rain and sleet too. Late in the day, well, actually in the evening, and spreading through the rest of the Carolinas as we go into first part of Friday. And this model only goes out 48 hours, so it doesn't cover the entire event as it ends at 8 a.m. or rather 7 a.m. on Friday. But as you go through the morning commute there on Friday, it looks like there's some potential issues along and north of I-40 in North Carolina with snow and potentially some ice buildup occurring in that area. Switching over to the 3-kilometer NAM model, which I should have put in place as I wanted it just before I started this. But anyway, as we go through the next couple of days, it shows a similar solution with rain and mixed precipitation arriving later Thursday night and into early Friday across the Carolinas. And again, most of that's up in North Carolina. We're mostly free of any winter weather to deal with in South Carolina this time. This model's a little bit warmer, and so it has most of the snow occurring right along the North Carolina-Virginia line and having mostly sleet and freezing rain off to the south along the I-40 corridor. Now, looking at the totals from the models here, I'll show total snowfall. It's not all that impressive, just 1 to 2 inches there on the 3-kilometer NAM. Outside of the mountains and higher ground in the mountains, seeing a little bit more. The high-res rapid refresh also not terribly impressive with 1 to 2 inches, but for early December, that's not bad. In terms of sleet and freezing rain, though, that can get a little further south, not into South Carolina for the most part. Those of you in the far northwest and the usual cold spots along the North Carolina line and northern Pickens and Oconee County, northern Greenville County, especially in those higher ground, there may be some sleet and freezing rain for a time, but probably not for very long. Don't be surprised if you see a few ice pellets mixed in at the onset for most places northwest of I-85, but this is a more North Carolina event in this case. So it's looking like there could be some impacts to deal with late Thursday night into early Friday. As we go through the day on Friday, we'll see the storm starting to slide off to the south and east. The trailing cold front pushes into South Carolina and eastern North Carolina, where it'll all be a rain event there. Would not be a surprise if we had some embedded thunderstorms along the coast in South Carolina and maybe in southeastern North Carolina as well, but I don't think it'll be anything in the way of severe weather. So that's our first event, and again, it's not a large part of the Carolinas that'll be impacted, but parts of North Carolina will have a little bit of sleet and freezing rain to deal with. Again, not a major event here. Again, likely an inch or two of snow, maybe locally more in the higher spots in western North Carolina, up to 6 inches perhaps in the high ground. And, of course, some ice buildup could be an issue as well to cause some icy patches on the roads, but I don't think this is going to be a situation that causes widespread power outages. Now, we'll move over to the GFS model here to look at what we can see going forward. From there, it looks like that front's going to become stationary over South Carolina and bring parts of the state a prolonged rain event, which we won't complain about because we've been in a drought in South Carolina and remain there. So a lengthy rain event is probably a good thing for us. So let's bring those raindrops, even if it does have to come on the weekend. Going into Saturday and Sunday, things stay wet. Little wave of low pressure rides along it. Looks like Saturday night into Sunday to push the rain a little bit further north, maybe into North Carolina for a time. Then as we get to Sunday night to Monday, we have a more significant storm system that rides along our front. and causes more in the way of precipitation. Again, there's a later Sunday night and into Monday. As we go into Monday, the GFS and the Canadian model is in agreement with it that colder air dumps into the Carolinas at the last minute here and causes to turn over to snow. Again, mostly in North Carolina, but the northern fringe of South Carolina is impacted as well if the GFS and the Canadian operational models are to be believed. But I'm not sure they're to be believed at this point. Other models are showing something a little different. The European model shows this storm system Sunday night to Monday to be weaker and the cold air to be much slower. And that's usually the way things work out in these situations, that instead of getting a winter weather event, the cold air just arrives too late for any significant amount of snow or ice to occur when you have the cold air chasing the moisture. So don't be surprised if this doesn't work out, and then we end up just seeing rain instead, and perhaps not much of it, because the European model, along with the Canadian model, the experimental update to the Canadian model, that should be a better version of the Canadian models, kind of with the Euro, and not really showing much in the way of winter precipitation. So let's take a look at that. Let's see what we have here from the European model. And so let's take a look at what the European model is showing here. Going through our first event, again, it's not really showing much in the way of winter weather, even in North Carolina. It mostly keeps it along the I-40 corridor for our Friday event. And then with our second event, the next storm coming in is a little weaker. This is the weekend event showing some rain spreading back into North Carolina for a time. And then the next storm coming through on Monday, it's noticeably weaker and keeping most of the precipitation even offshore, and the cold air would arrive too late for there to be any significant winter weather with it. So that's more likely what's going to happen with early next week. So for now, don't buy into any hype that's showing there could be a winter storm early next week in North Carolina. Of course, all that's subject to change. It's far enough out that there could be some changes to the forecast. So we'll keep in touch with that and update you as necessary here on Carolina Weather Group as to what to expect for this next storm coming our way early next week. All right, that's it for now. Enjoy your weather that you do get this weekend, be it ice, rain, snow, or just chilly weather. And we'll be back with you again soon. Y'all take care.